From the EPAWA headquarters in South Allentown, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video blog on the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may or may not reflect the thoughts of the EPAWA staff as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Hey, good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 18th. We just got done with a thread-the-needle system that brought some snow over to the region, and in some areas quite surprising. We're going to get into that first, and we'll go into the weeks ahead and take a look into March a little bit, because there's some interesting things going on with that. A lot of people wanted to kill winter and say it's over, and although it is over for the rest of February, aside from our little thread-the-needle thing we had last night, we do have hope yet for before the end of winter for things to change, and we're going to talk about a little bit in this video. Starting off with the long range first. This is our long range update from Friday. Of course, this is all publicly available. Many of you may have missed this because we didn't have time to link to it in a separate post on social media like we normally do on Fridays, but this was updated on Friday, so if you not see it, take a look at it. But here's what we had, slightly below average, of course, yesterday with that snow, and then we are now going to above average for the next couple of days, but nothing really crazy. We're going to be into the well into the 40s to near 50 each of the next couple of days, and then we have a warm front that's going to come through that's going to send us well above average, and I mean well above average. That's going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we still stay slightly above between the 22nd and 28th. After that, this is going to change. This from the 1st to the 7th here, we have slightly above average. I think that maybe the first couple of days of that might start off slightly above average. After that, we have risks to go to near to slightly below average after we get to around the maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th. That's still uncertain yet. It's still evolving. I'll get into that in this video too, but I think this will carry into the week 2 of March, and we will be largely slightly below average. This might change also, where it's from near average to slightly below. We're starting to see some changes in the ensembles, and we knew this was going to happen, where the effects of the sudden stratospheric warming that took place last weekend, or the end of last weekend, would finally start to catch or start to downwell or to the troposphere. And when it did that, the models were going to have their oh no moment, and they were going to start to adjust, and that's what we're starting to see in the longer range ensembles. We're starting to see some changes that are going to allow for some colder temperatures, but again, the extent of that is still uncertain, and I'll show you why here in this video. We had our system here on the Saturday night special here that dumped some snow. That was last night. Some rain further southeast, and then of course we have a warm front moving through on Monday that I just talked about. Another cold front on the 22nd, and we have more rain here toward the 24th and 25th. So we have an active week again next week. I know a lot of people are saying, when are we going to stop this relentless precipitation? And it doesn't look like it's going to happen before the end of this month. Okay, so it looks like we're going to stay above average precipitation. We have that for this month. Also have above average +2 to +4 for the whole month, even though we had this little snow last night. It really didn't do anything as far as temperatures are concerned, because they're going to be very warm this week coming up, and we were just really warm before it. The whole thread-the-needle concept means a lot of questions that people don't understand this. The whole thread-the-needle concept means you had warmth overall for the pattern as a whole. Then you had a very transient, small window of about 24 to 36 hours where temperatures are back down to slightly below average, and a perfectly timed system that came in to coincide with that cold shot. So that's where the thread-the-needle comes into play, because we are going to above average after this. February as a whole is above average. March as a whole slightly above average, but we're going to watch the snowfall department here, because I think we were slightly below average most areas. Now some areas are getting closer to normal for February after yesterday. March might have something that might produce also. We'll get into that in this video too. So we had a quick hitting over performer yesterday. This was the NAM high res. This is the 3 kilometer that was taken. This is the initialized sound Saturday morning, so you can see now it was hinting at there was going to be some banding setting up in here, and it's not that we were ignoring it, but the NAM 3 kilometer wasn't really it was given the idea that there could be some banding setting up, but there wasn't a lot of support with that. It were in certain areas that it was going to be there's going to be banding setting up, but the NAM was focusing on these 2 areas here, which actually did a pretty good job in the middle section here, and even some parts of the southern section that overperformed. All right, it was a little bit too aggressive in some areas, and then it also picked up another third band up in this area, which wasn't exactly correct, but we had some banding that was showing up here on the NAM 3 kilometer, and that gave us what we had yesterday as far as overperformance. We had some areas from the lower Susquehanna Valley to the Lehigh Valley to parts of northern New Jersey, and we highlighted this area between here and here. We didn't really focus on this area, so we didn't think it didn't have any support for that, but we did have some surprises out in this area too, 5 to 7 inches in the lower Susquehanna Valley where we had 2 to 4. And this is a very good graphic of what happened here. This is courtesy of Cranky Weather Guy on Twitter. If you're a weather enthusiast and you don't follow him, make sure you do. This guy is incredible. He does a great analysis for free on Twitter. But here is, you had a boon versus bust type thing. The boon areas are the areas that you had the frontogenesis going on. You had a lot of zonal, almost west to east setups here, where you have the best forcing or lift goes in here in these different bands. In between, you have subsidence, and which is sinking air, so you have less in between. So we were seeing that yesterday. You have some areas, like, wow, man, there's Lehigh Valley got 7, 8 inches of snow. Northern New Jersey 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of snow in some spots. How that happened? Well, you had this band that just sat over you and just rocked you. And the same thing down south here, although we were battling with marginal temperatures here, so you weren't seeing those incredible snow rates. Up here, you had a little bit more also, but in between, you had these the sinking air, the subsidence in between that led to lesser totals. Up in the Wilkes-Barre area had about 2 inches. Now, we did have 2 to 4 there, but when people are sitting in Wilkes-Barre, seeing Allentown getting nearly 8 inches in spots here, they're saying, well, it was a bust for them because they didn't get into on the heavier action. But that's why you had this. It was a very fast moving system. We knew that was going to happen, and most of this came in, especially in here, came in like a 3-hour period. It was insane. But we knew it was a fast moving, flat, progressive system, and it still was. They're changing that. The low wasn't stronger or more amped or anything like that. We just didn't pick up on the fact that there was going to be these zonal west to east frontogenesis bands, which is basically what took place, and that's why you got those locally higher totals. So that happens in systems sometimes. The models miss it a lot of times, and we just had to adjust on the fly with our My Pocket Meteorologist program. So this is what our final call looked like. We did highlight the best chance areas, but we had those in 4 to 6. Highest totals in northern New Jersey. Of course, some areas went 7, 8, 9 in this region, and we could have extended this a little bit further out back into southwest, into maybe like Cumberland, Perry, and Dauphin counties, where some 5 to 7 inch amounts were there also. But the general idea was right. And when you look at a snow map, it's never going to verify 100%, but it gives you a general idea of where the heaviest is going to fall and where the best axis is going to be. So I think overall, that point was made. And as long as you follow that, not exactly 4 to 6 inches, if you got 7 instead, whatever. Okay. Congratulations. Now, after this, we're going to go into the return of the spring-like temperatures, and this is the setup here. This is Monday. Now, the next couple of days are going to be above average, but they're not going to be like, wow, So we're talking about temperatures in the 40s and 50s, both today and also on Monday. Warm front's going to move through on Monday. It's going to lift off to north, and you're going to have high pressure off to the east. It's kind of like a Bermuda high, and then a warm surge, big surge of warmth coming in from the southwest as this front clears off to the north on Monday night. And then so you have a return to the spring-like temperatures. This is the projection for Tuesday for highs, and wow, look at this. We are 70 degrees or higher for most areas, except for northeastern PA, northern New Jersey, but even there you're mid upper 60s. All right, so you're 70 degrees or higher over many areas, and I think the peak heating day is going to be Wednesday. We're going to get low to mid 70s. Yes, this is February. This is a short-lived surge of warmth. This is not unprecedented by any means to see this kind of thing happen if in the right setup. But we do have very warm record high challenging temperatures that are going to occur, and it's going to be short-lived. When it happens in February, you're usually not going to hold on to it. We're not going to have a heat wave in February, in other words. All right, so you're going to have a couple days here, and then we are going to drop down behind that. But we're going to still stay slightly above to above average, and I think we stay that way through the end of the month. Here's the overall pattern. This is looking at the 24th now. This is behind that. We don't have those really high above. You've looked at a couple days ago, Tuesday, Wednesday on this map, which I don't have here. This is a couple days after that. But you had temperatures that are up here in the 15 to 20 degrees above average. It was insane. But now you still have slightly above to above average temperatures continuing behind that through the end of the month. And then once we get to the beginning of March, it starts to slacken a little bit, because we got some changes going on in the upper atmosphere. I'll discuss that in a second. We have a cold pull that's off to the east. This is on the European ensemble, and it's not as aggressive as the GFS ensembles. So I'll show you both here in a second. But it gives you the idea. It's not going to be quite. It's going to be still slightly above average, near to slightly above, beginning of March. And then after that, look what it does. Oh boy. And now it's starting to move this cold westward, and you got the lower heights and potential for a storm here along the coast. A little bit too early to talk about that yet, though. But this is, keep an eye on that. This is the first week of March. And we're going to see some changes. The GEFS, which are the GFS ensembles, are much more aggressive with this cold. Much more aggressive, and we get into the storm threats. And then in this pattern, you have a lot of things that are going to be going on that will basically a lot of things in this pattern are going to go on that are going to be determined on the NAO. And so here's the current setup. This is where your polar vortex is. And this is as of Monday night. Okay, so you get this warm surge. You're allowed to have this warm surge here because of the PV sitting over Hudson Bay is weakening. Okay, eventually this is going to move up here in this direction toward northwest Canada after it's weakened, and that's a result of whatever happened with the sudden stratospheric warming episode that we had at the end of last weekend. So that did occur. It is now welling. It's going to force this to weaken and move northwest. At the same time, in that void, you're going to have a surge of warmth. La Nina. This is a La Nina pattern right here. This is La Nina. Okay, where you have cold up here, and you have a warm surge in the southeast ridge fighting on the east side, and that's because because the void, or the weakening PV, is going to move up into northwest Canada and create a void. Now, once it does that, you see this is where it is now. It's up here. This is going to the 28th of the month. You see something coming into the picture here. What's this? You have higher heights building in toward Iceland and eastern parts of Greenland. If this builds in, it changes the pattern downstream. You get some blocking, and you get this more of an amplified pattern like this. However, since this is over Iceland, your best cold is out here over the ocean. If this continues, all these NAOs like this usually start off east base to begin with. It depends how far westward this gets. What we want this NAO to do to benefit the Mid-Atlantic is to be centered over either Baffin Island or Baffin Bay, not out here. By doing so, it's going to move this trough that's right here. It's going to move it westward, and it's going to be over us instead. And that's what the GEFS is doing. That's what the GEFS is doing. Look where it has it centered, over Baffin Island, Baffin Bay, not over Iceland, which is up here. Big difference. This is an east base NAO, and this is a west base NAO. A west base NAO is better for a trough in the east and a storm signal. Okay, so that's what we want. We have to decide which one's right. So at least since the GFS is showing this, as a result of that, you have west base NAO. You allow all this cold to come in, and then you have the lower heights along the eastern coast, and you can get a pretty decent snowstorm. The NAO on both the European ensemble and the GEFS are all negative in this period. That's not the issue. It's just a matter of where the NAO is positioned. Again, if it's like this, like the European ensemble has over Iceland, eastern Greenland, this is an east base NAO. This is not good. The trough is out here, and you still get some kind of semblance of slightly above average or maybe near average. You might flatten the ridge out a little bit. You force this westward, it forces everything else. Everything else, by this going westward, everything else is forced westward. So everything on this little ups and downs. See this little thing right here? This is the jet stream, and this is the ridges and the valleys. The cold comes in in the valleys. Ridges come in on the hills. Okay. Well, here's the cold out here. Now everything's going to be forced westward because this NAO is coming westward. So it forces everything westward, and then you get the trough over the east, and that's why we need a west-based NAO in order for the beginning of March to produce something in the snowfall department. So we're not writing off winter. We're going to watch this period very closely. This is not a slam dunk. Again, if this ends up being like the European model shows or the European ensemble shows and it's an east-based, it probably still doesn't help us in early March. We still kind of remain, we might be back to near average. But if you want below average and a big storm threat here along the coast in the beginning of March, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th of March, something like that, you're going to need a west-based NAO. You need that to continue westward. So just follow that over the next couple weeks, and then you'll be golden as far as what the first week of March is going to look like. It's been a very tricky pattern. The Matt-Julian oscillation is going to have support for something stormy phases of 8, 1, and 2. Now, 8 and 1 aren't going to work out for us in the next couple of weeks because of this PV that's still sitting here. And so this has to get out of the way, because once this gets out of the way, then you have the NAO coming in. But as long as this is sitting here weakening, it allows that southeast ridge to come up and pump up the ridge. So it kind of offsets the effect of Matt-Julian oscillations phases 8 and 1, which are typically cold. Here you can see phase 8 here. Phase 1's cold. But I think once the NAO comes into play, which is right in here, once we get into phase 2, well, that's still a cold phase. See that? So we're still okay. Still a cold and stormy phase, and something can still happen. We just need to be patient and see how this NAO works out. East base versus west base is going to make a big difference. So in summary, largely milder than average temperatures continue through the end of February. All the snow that we just had is going to go bye-bye very quickly. Very warm Tuesday, Wednesday. All right, get the shorts out. Stratospheric changes may allow for a negative NAO to develop at the end of the month, setting up for another window of opportunity the first week or so of March. I think that's first week, maybe middle of the first week through the second week is your window. After that, we're probably okay. We'll see, though. Who knows? But it will depend on east-based versus west-based negative NAO. Negative NAO is definitely coming. That's not the issue. It's just a matter of positioning, east versus west-based, which will make a difference in our pattern between this, which is slightly above average or near to slightly above average, and this, which is a deep trough in the east because of a west-based negative NAO, and much colder, and a storm signal. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see how this works out, but at least there's some hope. There's some semblance of hope. If you're looking for hope in winter and you're saying, wow, those winters are over already, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, so we're going to obviously follow that with our long-range chart. Right now, we have that listed as slightly above average. This is probably going to be changing, and so is this period right here. We'll just keep following us for the updates on Fridays for the public long-range outlook, and of course the Weather Weeklies videos on Sunday, which we'll have another one on the 25th of this month. I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 18th, 2018. Join us again next week, and we'll have an update on that first week of March period that is still in question. Take care.